You're born in the late 13th century, somewhere in Western Europe. Not to kings, not to peasants. Your family lives in the thin, dangerous line between. Your father holds a modest estate, a few dozen acres of farmland, a crumbling manor house, and the most important thing of all, a title. He's a knight, sworn to a baron who kneels to a duke, who kneels to a king, who kneels to God. At least that's what the priest says every Sunday. From your first breath, your path is written. You're not free to dream of vineyards or markets or becoming a wandering poet. No, you're born into armor, whether your bones can carry it or not. At 5 years old, your toys are wooden swords. Your nursemaid slaps your hands when you hold it wrong. You're told again and again, grip tight, shield high, never flinch. The priest who tutors you speaks of sin and salvation, but your father only cares about discipline and duty. At meals, he says nothing to you except, eat more. A weak knight is a dead knight. By 7, you're sent away. No more running in the fields by your mother's skirts. You're bundled into a cart and delivered to another lord's castle. You're now a page, which really means servant. You fetch water, feed hounds, polish boots, scrub floors. You watch noblemen feast on boar while you lick grease from the platters they throw to the ground. Your hands grow blistered, your back bent. But you watch always. Watch the knights drink, boast, laugh, their armor shining in the torchlight. You imagine yourself among them. At 10, you start training with more than sticks. You ride ponies that buck and bite until you learn to stay on no matter what. You swing dull swords until your arms turn to lead. You practice wrestling, grappling, rolling in the dirt until your skin is raw. You're taught to serve but also to bleed. Your master says, a knight must be both hammer and nail. First learn to endure the nail, then you may become the hammer. At 12, you graduate to squire. The title feels like a crown. No longer servant to everyone, now you serve one knight directly. You clean his armor, sharpen his weapons, feed his horse, patch his wounds. You ride at his side into skirmishes, carrying his spare lance, kneeling when he kneels, rising when he rises. He's your master but also your teacher, and his lessons are not kind. He shows you where to strike a man to make him fall from his saddle, how to drive a dagger through mail links, how to aim your lance not at the shield center but the weak joint of the shoulder. His words are blunt. Knighthood is not about honor, it's about survival. Remember that, or you won't live long enough to regret it. At 14, you see your first real battle. It's not glorious, it's mud, screaming, chaos. You grip your knight's shield as arrows rain like black hail. You hear steel hit flesh, see a man's skull split open by a mace. Blood sprays warm across your cheek. The ground shakes with hooves. You don't fight, not yet, but you carry weapons. You drag wounded men from the dirt. That night, you vomit until your stomach's empty. No one comforts you. They just say, now you've begun. At 16, you're tougher, stronger. You've learned to wield a sword without flinching, to ride without falling, to strike without hesitation. You train every day until your arms are heavy as stone. You bleed from blisters, but you keep going. You polish armor until it shines like a mirror, then wear it until your skin boils beneath. You practice tilting with lances, charging at wooden dummies until splinters pierce your face. The other squires laugh when you fall. You laugh when they break bones. At 18, you kneel in a great hall, your head bowed. The Lord touches your shoulder with a sword, speaks words older than memory, honor, loyalty, service. You repeat them, though you don't understand them yet. When the blade lifts, you rise a knight. Your family beams with pride. Your Lord nods, satisfied. You want to feel glory, but instead you feel the weight of iron shackles, invisible but real. You've sworn away your life, and now it's no longer yours. At 20, you ride to war. Maybe it's a border dispute. Maybe it's a crusade. Maybe it's just your lord's greed. Doesn't matter. You ride where you're told. You wear mail that cuts your shoulders raw, carry a shield that grows heavier with every hour. The sun bakes you inside your helmet until your sweat blinds you. The clash begins, and there is nothing but noise. Trumpets blaring, horses shrieking, steel on steel. You lower your lance, point it at another man, and pray. Impact is like thunder. Your body jolts, your breath explodes from your chest, but you stay on the saddle. The other man doesn't. Afterward, the priests praise God, the lords divide spoils, the peasants bury the dead. You just stare at your dented armor and wonder why you're still alive. At 24, you travel farther, across seas, deserts, strange lands. The church calls it holy war. The poets call it glory. In truth, it's hunger, thirst, and death. You fight men whose faces blur into memory, whose screams sound the same no matter their language. You loot corpses not for greed but because you need bread. You hear sermons about salvation, then see men slaughtered for refusing baptism. You start to doubt. You write to your mother saying you serve God, but you leave out the nightmares. At 27, you return home. The land looks smaller than you remember. The peasants bow deeper. The lords nod more respectfully. You've seen blood. You've survived battles. You've earned scars that shine in torchlight. They whisper your name, the knight who never falls. You host feasts in your hall, drink wine, wear fine surcoats embroidered with your crest. But honor is expensive. Armor breaks, horses die, wars never end. So you tax harder, squeeze peasants more. You tell yourself it's duty, but in the dark, staring at your reflection in a cup of wine, you wonder if duty is just another word for cruelty. At 32, you compete in tournaments, jousts, melees. The crowds cheer, banners fly, trumpets blare. The air smells of roast meat, spilled ale, sweat. You lower your lance, thunder forward, splinters explode when wood strikes steel. You win sometimes, lose others. You bleed always. But it's not just sport, it's practice for war, wrapped in pageantry. You learn that a knight is as much a show as a soldier, that honor is as much about appearance as action. At 35, your body starts to betray you. The shoulder where a spear pierced you aches in rain. Your knee cracks when you climb stairs. You drink more, laugh less. You've buried too many friends, some in battle, some in tournaments, some from fever that no armor can stop. You've learned the truth your knight once told you. Knighthood isn't about honor. It's about surviving long enough to regret. At 40, you train a squire of your own. He's young, hungry, reckless. You see yourself in him. You want to tell him the truth, that glory is a lie, that the songs are lies, that all knighthood gives you is scars and silence. But you stay silent, because once your knight stayed silent too. And silence is tradition. At 45, you ride into another war. Not holy this time, just land and pride, the same as always. You're unhorsed, surrounded, beaten half to death. Only your men drag you out. You lie for months, ribs broken, fever burning. When you finally rise, you limp. Your sword feels heavier. Your lance shakes in your grip. For the first time, you feel old. At 50, you're granted more land. A gift, they call it. Really, it's a burden. More peasants to manage, more taxes to collect, more mouths to feed. You preside over disputes, punish thieves, hear petitions. You sit in judgment with a sword at your side, though you know justice is just another word for power. You look at your hall full of retainers, banners, wealth, and feel nothing but emptiness. At 55, you fight again. Not for kings or lords, but for yourself. Bandits raid your land. You gather your strength, strap on old armor, mount your last warhorse. Your body protests every motion, but your soul won't rest. You ride, you fight, you kill, you bleed. And when you fall, it's not in bed from fever, but in mud with a sword in your hand, exactly as a knight should. They bury you in the chapel near your manor. No ballads, no bards, no feasts. Just a cross, a prayer, a whisper. He was loyal. He served. They won't remember your doubts, your guilt, your endless nights awake, staring at shadows. They'll remember the crest on your shield, the dents in your armor, the title before your name. That's all history ever remembers. But in the silence of the grave, you know the truth. Knighthood wasn't glory. It was sacrifice. It was bruises at 5, wounds at 15, scars at 30, silence at 50. It was loyalty to men who used you, to lords who barely knew your name, to a God whose silence was louder than any scream. And your life, for all its battles, tournaments, feasts, confessions, scars, was never truly yours.